Hey guys, BookCon 2019 is right around the corner, so I thought I'd share my top 10 BookCon tips with you all. So if you're planning on going this year, or even if you're not going this year, but you might want to go sometime in the near or distant future, keep watching. I will not be attending this year, but I did go to BookCon 2017 and 2018, and I had a great time and I learned some things, so here goes. To start, here's some quick background. BookCon takes place at the beginning of June in New York City, and there are a ton of exhibition booths, panels, author signings, readers, writers, book lovers, everything. BookCon's website describes itself as the event where storytelling and pop culture collide, and I gotta say, that's a pretty apt description. So here goes. Tip number 1. Pack smart. That's right, the first tip I have for you doesn't necessarily have anything to do with BookCon itself, but the traveling process. If you think you might be buying a lot of books or merchandise at BookCon, you might want to think about taking along a second bag just for those things. I went to BookCon with my husband Ian, and what we did was we packed all of our belongings and clothes and everything into a small carry-on size suitcase. We weren't going for that long, it's only 2 days. So we packed everything into a smaller carry-on suitcase and then put that carry-on suitcase into a bigger check-in suitcase so that we only had to pay for one bag on the way over. Then on the way back home, we put all of our clothes and belongings into the larger suitcase, and we didn't buy that much stuff, but we put all of our books and merchandise in the smaller suitcase and therefore had 2 suitcases on the way home. You might also want to think about bringing along a sturdy tote bag of some sort. That's just to help you carry all of your stuff. And if you don't have a sturdy tote, don't worry about it. These past 2 years, BookCon has actually had free tote bags there. Tip number 2, review the BookCon program. For the most part, there are 5 main categories of activities: book signings, panels, meetups, browsing/buying, and this year they will be having workshops. Take some time to review the BookCon website and program so that you'll know what companies will be there and what authors will be there. You can kind of map everything out. You'll know when certain panels are, when author signings are, and you'll know where to go so you won't get lost. Now, with that being said, you should also prepare for variations in your plans. You may not get the author autograph you want, you may not get that arc you wanted, because chances are there are hundreds of other people there that want the same thing, and there are only so many slots or tickets available beforehand. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. There are lots of other wonderful things you can do and things you can see and people you can see, so you can always have a plan B or even a plan C in case your plan A falls through. Tip 3, sign up for author autographs. You are able to sign up for author autographing sessions online if that's something that is super important to you at BookCon. By now, signups have already been available online for about a week now. I think they went live on May 11th, so chances are the majority of spots for author signups are probably already taken, but don't quote me on that. You should check out the BookCon website yourself and look it up just in case there are spots available for authors that you'd like to meet and have sign your books. Back in 2017, I messed up the author signups big time. My brain just didn't fully understand the instructions, I guess. I was slow going. And by the time I figured out my mistake, the spots for the authors that I wanted to have autograph my books were gone within minutes. So for us, 2017 was very much a panel-oriented BookCon, which was fine. That was great. I loved it. I learned a lot. It was definitely worth it. But in 2018, I really wanted to learn from my mistake, and I wanted to, because the previous year was so panel heavy, I wanted to focus more on author autographs. So you better believe that I went to the site early, I looked at the instructions, I visualized it in my head, and I was ready and waiting at my computer when things went live. And as a result, I was able to grab autograph tickets for a handful of my favorite authors that were going to be at BookCon. So next year, or the year after that, or even the year after that, if author autographs is a priority for you at BookCon, make sure you go to the BookCon website, turn on your newsletters, email alerts, whatever, because they will be sending out notifications about dates and times, Pacific versus Eastern times, of when signups will go live. And you don't want to miss out, so you want to read those instructions, know what to do, sit at your computer, because they will be gone in minutes. I'm not even kidding. But they're also free. Tip number 4, know that autographing times are not hard and fast. Just because the program says that an author will be at this table from 1 to 3 does not necessarily mean that that author will be there for the whole time. There was one instance last year where I got into line for one author autographing session because it was a smaller line. I figured I'd get into that one, it would go quick, and then I'd have time to hop over to the next author sign up that I had lined up, and two birds. But what actually ended up happening was that the line I got in took a really long time, and so we were in line for at least an hour, I think. There will be lots of standing in line at BookCon. But so we were in line for an hour, and I still hadn't gotten the autograph, and I watched from afar as the other line dwindled, and after a while there were no fans in line, and so the author left because no one was there. So I was crushed. And that's also just further proof that I suck at picking lines. Just like, if you're with me and you're like, which line do we go in? Don't have me pick. Don't listen to me. I always choose the wrong one. I'm not good at picking lines. But that brings me to tip number 5. Don't be afraid to ask questions. The very next day, the author was having another signing, and I didn't have any panels I wanted to go to at that time, so I kind of like waited at the end of the line, and I waited until it dwindled down and no one else was going through, and I actually asked the staff member at the end of the line. I explained what had happened the previous day, that I had missed out, and I explained the situation and basically asked if it was possible for me to get an autograph today instead of the previous day. I figured the worst they could say was no. Fortunately, they said yes, and I got my autograph and I got to talk to that author, and it was just wonderful. So really, don't be afraid to ask questions. Everyone there is really nice, super respectful, super helpful, and don't be shy. Another question that I'm mostly glad I asked last year was, when will lines start forming for X panel or X author sign up? I say mostly glad because while it was definitely helpful to ask questions, and I am a proponent of asking questions, sometimes you should take the answers with a grain of salt. There was an art giveaway and an author signing at a booth last year, and so Ian and I kind of went early to ask the staff members at that booth, what time will they be letting people line up? Because a lot of the times they don't want people crowding around unnecessarily, just like waiting. They said they were allowing people to line up 30 minutes before the event was supposed to start, and so I figured, great, I know what time it'll be, I'll be prepared, I'll be ready, I'll be there. So we did a lap around the exhibition floor, and then at around 45 minutes before the event started, I just swung by the booth again just to scope things out, and not only had the line already started forming, but it was closed, meaning they weren't like letting anyone else officially stand in line because there were only a certain amount of ARCs that the publishing company had brought, and so they let that amount of people in line before I thought it would be time to line up. So I'm also glad that we kind of went back to check. So at that point, do we stand in line? Do we not stand in line? Do we move on with our lives? We didn't have anything else planned during that time slot because we had planned to be at this booth. So we were only maybe, I think, 6 people after the official closing of the line. So again, we asked the staff member that had closed the line, does this mean that no one else is allowed to line up, or like, what's the deal here? And they explained that you can get in line, but there's no guarantee that you will get an ARC or that you will meet the author because there's not enough copies of ARCs, which is fine, understandable. So we didn't have anything lined up, so we just decided to wait and be patient and see what happens. So depending on what you have planned, it can be beneficial to wait in line. For us, like I said, we didn't have anything else planned for that time slot, so we decided to just hang out in line. And we actually ended up getting an ARC, and I was able to talk to the author, and she was able to sign my books, and we were actually, I think, the second to the last ARC. So depending on what you've got going on during that time of the day, waiting in line and being patient might really pay off. Tip number 6 is turn on your social media notifications. If you've looked at the BookCon website and you've noticed that your favorite companies, publishers, authors, booktubers, celebrities, whatever, are going to be in attendance, you might want to consider turning on your social media notifications, because a lot of the time they will be tweeting or posting on Instagram in real time, letting their followers know that they will be having a special event or a special giveaway at booth number whatever at this time, or in later this afternoon, or even right now. So if that's something that's important to you, be sure your notifications are on so you can stay up to date. Tip number 7, beware of spoilers. If you plan on going to panels, know that you may be exposed to spoilers. Usually the authors hosting the panels and the fans in attendance are cognizant of the fact that not everyone there might have read all the books written by those authors, and they watch what they say. But you never know, things happen. Sometimes there's just a slip of the tongue, or people are so excited when they ask questions, or they really want to know about this one particular dramatic part of the book that they just ask. And them's the breaks. It's just something you want to be mindful of when picking and choosing what panels you want to go to. Back in 2017, I deliberately chose to not go to a Cassandra Clare panel because at that point in time, I hadn't read Lord of Shadows yet, and I was super afraid of things being spoiled. Could I have gone and not had anything spoiled? Sure, that's a definite possibility, but I was not willing to take that chance. Ultimately, it's up to you, but know that it is a possibility. Tip number 8, be aware of when and where to eat. There is a food court in the convention center, but they're only operating during certain times of the day, and you should definitely know when those times are. Ian and I were flying in from the West Coast, so our appetites weren't on East Coast time, and by the time we actually got hungry and went to find food in the food court, everything was closed. So check out their hours ahead of time, or if you don't want to eat in the convention center, that's totally fine too. You can look at different restaurants or eateries in the area beforehand and kind of map out walking distance, and depending on where you go, it might actually be cheaper that way. Or you can also just bring your own snacks to munch on throughout the day. Tip number 9, have both cash and card available. If you're looking to buy things, whether it's merchandise, books, food, drinks, they also have Starbucks there. Most vendors accept either one, but there were a few who took one or the other. Tip number 10, last but not least, wear comfortable attire. BookCon is an all-day event, and if you haven't caught on by now, you will be doing a lot of walking and a lot of standing in lines. So wear comfy shoes. Now I admit, I'm definitely one that sacrifices comfort for style, but I'm telling you, it's not worth the sore feet. Looking back at my Fitbit app, I walked 12,000 to 14,000 steps per day while at BookCon. That's including walking to and from our hotel. Trust me, wear comfortable shoes. Your feet will thank you. And that's it. Those are my top 10 BookCon tips. You may have noticed that a lot of these apply to conventions in general. It's not just BookCon. I went to DragonCon with one of my best friends last year, and a lot of these apply. So tell me, if you've been to BookCon or a similar convention, are there any tips that you'd recommend? If you enjoyed this video and found it informative, please let me know by hitting that like button. And for more content like this, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned for more. Until next time, bye. Can I have my chair back, please? Thank you. Yeah, I'm okay.